Hey, this is a short video to show the logistics of setting up a small multiples map in QGIS. This is for the Community GIS class at the University of Georgia. We're going to use some data for Athens-Clarke County, looking at school district zone data, primarily some census data. So I've already loaded the boundaries for the school zones, and I've also loaded data from the US Census 2016, the census data, similar to what we'll be using in the lab assignment in class. You can see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and join the census data to the school zones. To do that, I go under Properties in the school zone. I go down to Joins down here, and then click Add Join. I'm going to join it based on a zoning variable, elementary school name. I'm also going to get rid of the custom field name prefix so it makes our data easier to read. I click OK and click OK. And now when I open up the attribute table of the school zones, I see here's all that data that's been added in. We're going to make a really simple school zone map in this case. And just with two variables, we're going to look at percent renters and the poverty rate. So we'll walk through that here briefly. First thing I want to do, I'm going to change the projection. This is just in the standard WGS projection. I'm going to change it to the Georgia East projection, which looks a little bit better. So we've done that. And then we'll go ahead and make our first choropleth map. To do that, I go under Properties and go under Style. I'm going to choose a graduated fill, and we'll start with the renter, which is this one right here, house renting percent estimate in this case. I want to use natural breaks as my classification scheme. We'll click OK, and that's what it looks like. You'll see in the middle of the city is where, or middle of the county, right around UGA is where we see the highest percentage of renters. That's not terribly surprising. And then we're going to create another layer here. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this and choose duplicate. And we'll create another layer in a different color. So we'll choose greens this time. And we'll look at poverty, which I believe is in here as well. There it is right there. Actually, we just have it for over 65 and under 18. So I'm just going to choose under 18 here and go ahead and classify that and click OK. And we get a map that looks like this, a little bit different than the map that we saw before. So we've got our two maps set up. Let's go ahead and start a layout. Now that we have our two layers, we're going to put these two maps side by side. We'll go under Project and choose New Print Composer. Don't worry about giving it a name. We're not going to have multiple print composers with this project. But we'll have a window that looks like this. All right? We're going to add both of our maps to that layer, and we have to add them one at a time. So we'll put just a short title here. We'll call it Home Rentals and Poverty in Athens-Clarke County. So we've got that. We'll make it the font a little bit bigger here. 20-point font. Make the text box a little bit bigger, something like that. There we go. So it's not going to be super, this isn't going to be a super pretty map. It just shows the idea of how this works. Well, now we'll add in our first map layer, and we'll put it right over here. There's our first map layer. You can see it's got a scale bar or scale over here that we can set. One of the main things we want to do here is lock the layers. This prevents the map from updating when we change our layers. So for instance, if I have to check both these boxes. If I don't do this, right, then I go back to our main screen and I turn on the rental map and I click on Update Preview. Oh, I was wrong. That actually doesn't change it. Now if I click, so the lock layers is what matters. If I click on Update Preview, it'll change it to the style that's on the map currently. So I'm going to start with just the poverty rate here. And Update Preview. I'll go ahead and lock that layer, right? And I'll add in a text box here just to say this is the poverty rate age 18 and younger. Right, so I'll add that in here. Make that font just a little bit bigger. Again, this is not, we're not aiming for being pretty here, just showing the general idea of how this works. And then we've got that. Add a legend in here. We can adapt that to over time. And then we'll go ahead and add our second map in here. To that, we got to go back to our main window. We'll put on the rental rate. Go back here, we have our layers locked. So now we add a second map. We'll add it right over here. Now notice this map's a lot bigger. What we're going to do is we're going to look at what the scale is here. We'll just call it 280,000. And we'll do the same scale here, 280,000. So that way those maps are roughly the same size. Let's move that map so it's actually in the frame, just like that. And then we'll move this down here. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a rough draft here of what this map can look like, but you get the basic idea of how this works. I'll go ahead and lock the layers for that. Since I'm going to end up probably just making this a little bit smaller in the way this is looking, I'll move the legend over here, move this over here. We would probably add another copying and pasting this. I would change the text here, so rental, something like this, right? And you get the idea. If I wanted to mess with the legend, I can do that over here, turn off auto update. And then, for instance, if I wanted to change this, I could change the item text to poverty rate and change this to rental rate or something like that. And you'll see how it updates on the map. And then I can make this, I believe, transparent if I unclick background right here. So not pretty, but you get the basic idea of how a map like this can work. So you'd have to add a layer for every map that you are going to add to this map, but when it's done, you'll have something that you can export and should look pretty good. Hope this is helpful.